All right. I think this thing's on. Is this thing on? Am I good? Good, okay. All right. Does this work for me to stand here? Can everyone see the screen? Should I relocate or should I sit down? We're good? All right, all right. Well, as Mark said, my name is Brad Blackstone. I am the senior pastor at Eagle River Grace Church in Eagle River, Alaska. My journey to becoming senior pastor certainly did not start out that way. I have a degree in civil engineering. I grew up in Maine. I attended the University of Maine, and I went through the ROTC program, which brought me to Alaska. And after 4 years of active service in the Army, I relocated here. I was in Fairbanks for 4 years at Fort Wainwright, and came down to this area, worked for the Department of Transportation as a road design engineer. And then I moved over to an organization called the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. We did water and sewer in the native villages, so I have been all over the state providing water and sewer services to native villages, primarily out of the Kotzebue and Nome area, a lot out of Juneau, and a little bit out of Bethel and some of those areas. I've been attending Eagle River Grace Church since 1997, so it's encroaching upon 30 years that I've been attending. My wife and I have been attending Eagle River Grace Church. I am a homegrown pastor. I did not have aspirations to the pulpit. We had a pastor back in 2005 who stepped down, and it was a rough departure. It was an acrimonious departure, and so it really split the church. There was about 1/3 of the people left after he departed, and we had this need for people to fill the pulpit, and I asked if I could have an opportunity to preach on a Sunday, and of course, the leadership of the church was eager to find anyone willing to preach, and so I did. And then, as it turned out, during that 2-year stint, I preached a lot. And when we got our new pastor on board in 2007, I'd asked him whether he felt like I should pursue this, and then he encouraged me to enter into a seminary program. So I enrolled in Southern Evangelical Seminary, and Southern Evangelical, their specialty is a Christian apologetics, and I had to take an introduction to apologetics course, and I thought, wow, this stuff is really cool. I'd like to get a degree in this, and so I have a master's degree in Christian apologetics, so I guess that's what gives me the credentials, if you will, to teach this class. And but the problem with Christian apologetics, of course, it really doesn't give you any tools for pastoral ministry. And so in 2019, I began another seminary program through Grace Seminary, which is in Indiana. And I have my Master's of Divinity from that school. So I have 3 kids. They are all 20-somethings now. They're your age. My oldest is now 20. She will be 29 this year. Hard to believe. She has 3 kids, so I'm a grandfather. My middle son, he is a mechanical engineer. So, but my youngest is 21. He is becoming a physical therapist. So he's been enrolled in a doctorate program for physical therapy. So that's a little bit of background from me. I've been senior pastor for 5 years. So it's not like I've been a senior pastor for ages and ages and ages. I wanted to also introduce, well, first of all, before I begin with the textbook, I wanted to maybe just ask, what do you know about Christian apologetics, and what do you hope to get from this class? And it would take me a long time to get to know each and every one of you here and now, so my hope is I can get to know you throughout the week. But is there anything that you would like to get from this class, Christian apologetics? Knowledge, okay. Great. Knowledge of what in particular, or? Okay, there we go. Perfect. Say again, I'm sorry.
I said I was hoping to learn knowledge on how to make pie.
Oh, make pie. Okay. I might not be able to help you there. My wife could, though. She makes a good pie. Yes.
So I want to know more about like the distinction between different religions and Christian adjacent faiths, which are not Christian but call themselves Christian. I want to learn more about what makes them distinct and faulty.
Okay. So you'd be interested in kind of like a comparison of world religions or different faiths. Okay. Yeah. We could go there because I could, but I hate to disappoint you. That's not in my it's not in my slides here today. Yeah. But that's good. So compare, and I'm assuming that's probably an interest of more than just you. Probably many of you are wondering, oh, well, what of Islam, right? What of Buddhism, and so forth. Any other things you hope to? Okay, yeah. Tools to defend your faith. Yeah, when someone challenges your faith, what might you say in response, right? Yeah. Yes.
I'm a camp counselor in the summer, and I would like to be able to answer the hard questions that they ask me.
Okay. One of the reasons why I chose Christian apologetics is I work, or formerly I worked with the junior, senior high kids at church, and they ask a lot of these questions because they're beginning to think adult-sized thoughts, and they're beginning to question these things. And so I wanted to have informed answers for them, and so that's why I pursued it. So it sounds like you are similar. You'd like to have an informed answer when these tough questions come. Because at that age, they are starting to think of these things. And is Christianity reasonable? Yeah.
I saw that, like on the title there, it was talking about worldviews.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what we're going to be like looking at today. For me, it's interesting that most worldviews are largely unprovable because people come from so vast a different framework.
Mm-hmm.
So like in Middle Eastern culture, you're going to have a complete different framework of how the world came, who God is, if there's one God, there's a billion gods.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to find ground where you can disprove a worldview when it comes from a totally different ideal
Yeah.
framework. Right?
Yeah.
And so just focus on how to show someone or yourself that you have the better framework. Because it's not based on how many people know, like, because in Islam, millions of people, probably more than Western framework, would believe in a different framework on how
Yeah.
a lot of things are. So just like, how do you present the better framework to say that
Sure.
it makes more sense to like believe in this framework.
Yeah. All right, good.
And one question is, do you think it is provable? Do you think
Yeah.
a Christian framework is provable?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's just more reasonable?
Well, so it really it boils down to what you're looking for as far as proof, and we will pursue those questions in this module. So a lot of people are looking for proof like this lock solid, irrefutable, no one could possibly challenge type of proof. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get there, but that's not to say that what we believe is unreasonable or it is the best thing. So, yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay, so I wanted to talk about your textbook. Of course, I have experience as a civil engineer. I went through all the classes, right? I took a boatload of notes, and I bought the textbook. What do you think I kept? My notes or my textbook from these classes? I didn't keep my notes. I kept my textbook, right? That's what I put on my shelf. And so I have selected this textbook because I think it is a For several reasons. Number one, I think it presents apologetics by and large the way I would. And it's hard to find a text that would really kind of pursue the craft of apologetics in the exact same way I would. This, of course, doesn't exactly follow how I would pursue the apologetics project, but it does a good job, I think. I like it because it's by and large in bullet format. It's fun to look at. There are colorful pages here. It's the type of thing that you might just pick up and want to browse during your own time. And so my desire is that this becomes a handy reference for you. That years from now, you'll think, oh yeah, I was in this module and we talked about this thing, but I can't quite remember all the stuff, and you can open this and kind of refresh yourself. At least you'll be confident that there are answers out there for you. And so, as you'll notice as we go through the module, I'll be referencing different pages in the textbook. And I invite you to have your textbook open and kind of follow along. Now, this is not, there's not going to be every part of the module that's going to have an exact correlation to your textbook. But for the most part, I think it will. So I hope this becomes a handy tool for you. All right? And of course, you are going to want to take notes. I think that will better help you understand and absorb the information. Our other textbook, of course, is the Bible. Especially we get to the worldview parts of the Bible, especially the Christian worldview is rooted in the revelation of Scripture. All right. You have a syllabus in front of you, I believe, yes? Okay, this just quickly outlines what I hope to accomplish here. Now, I grant you that this is an ambitious schedule. And I'm not going to move through this material with any kind of urgency, meaning we have to get to the end. What I would like is to move at the speed of your understanding. And so I hope to kind of regulate the speed through this material in that regard. If we don't get to the end, that's okay. That's okay. What I hope to achieve is for you to gain understanding and at a pace that is right for you. However, here we go. What I hope to cover are arguments in favor of the existence of God. Understanding the evidential arguments in favor of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Also understand the limitations of apologetics. And some objections from non-believers. What are non-believers going to say? Of course, understand the concept of worldview and what constitutes a Christian worldview. And then, of course, time permitting, as we get to the end, understanding the reliability of the Christian scriptures and understanding how we receive the Bible as it is in its current form today. I know it's an ambitious schedule, but that is the aspiration here. We have a couple of graded assignments. I have examination there. I'm weighing what that's going to look like. I have not finalized that thing yet. We may do something a little unorthodox on the exam. We may have something else. I am toying with the idea of something really kind of off the wall. But I think this, just from seeing you folks interact with each other, I think you're a fun bunch. And I bet you would like to have maybe a fun, what I'm thinking of, do we want to have like a game show style quizzing at the end where we come together as teams? We've got like, okay, I'm seeing yes. Okay, so the sit down written examination, I hate to disappoint you, that's probably not going to happen. Everyone, okay, has anyone seen Jeopardy before? Okay, so it would be a Jeopardy style game show, right? We'd have probably 3 to 4 teams. It can be a collaborative thing. You depress the plunger and the team chimes in, and I don't know what we would do for like the winning team or something. Does that sound like something you'd like to do? Okay, so probably with the last part of Friday, we'll set up the Jeopardy game show. Probably the last hour and a half of the class. Okay, so I'm going to have to. What I'll do is I'll prepare a study guide, so you can go through the study guide. If you know the study guide, you'll probably do really well on the game. Or maybe you don't want a study guide. Maybe you just want to go blindly into this thing. We want study guides. Okay. Yes? You like the study guide? Okay. All right. So that is what we are going to do. And I will be going back to our church midweek. I'll make sure I get it is pretty slick. It's like a little quizzing thing. You depress the plunger. I know who pressed in first, and you can answer the question. Okay. There we go. Plungers, the press button things? Yeah, it's not like the toilet plunger. No. Whole different thing. Whole different thing. So, okay. Now, one of the assignments here. So I know that you were talking about mere Christianity. It is not my expectation that you read the entire book or even read it all. If you look at the assignment that I've posted, it gives you links to 3 YouTube videos. The idea is, and it's the type of video where you see the hand drawing a bunch of pictures and it keeps scrolling through. It's kind of like the Bible Project thing, if you've seen Bible Project. And so all it is a narrator reading the text of Mere Christianity, the first 3 chapters, and it goes through and draws these things. In my opinion, it makes Mere Christianity a lot more understandable and digestible. And from there, you write a 1 to 2 page summary of that book. And if you have any questions on the assignment, you can ask me. Again, I've posted it. I think you all have access to that, yes? If not, let me know. And the other assignment will be a skeptic's argument against the historical resurrection of Jesus Christ. Again, we'll get into the skeptic's arguments against the resurrection. You need to refute one of those arguments is really what you need to do by using the scriptures. What's that? You can't, well, yes you can, but boy, you better have a good reason why. All right. Any questions so far? No questions? Well, I'll be around pretty much all week, so you can ask me then. So let's jump into the subject of apologetics. You'll notice that we're going to be jumping into apologetics first, in worldview second. The word apologetics, it comes from the Greek word apologia, and that means a defense or a speech in defense. And so an apologetic would be a rational defense of something. That's what an apologetic is. It's not the art of giving a sincere and heartfelt apology. That's not what apologetics is. Yes, I'm saying I'm deeply sorry, right? So Christian apologetics would be a rational defense of the Christian faith. And as that would imply, we will use philosophical arguments, logical arguments, to ply this craft of apologetics. Now, I also want to emphasize this does not negate the need for faith. And again, I hope to show that later in the module. But Christianity, what I hope to convey to you and what I hope you emerge from this module understanding is that Christianity is a reasonable faith. You don't have to check your brain at the door of your local church in order to engage in worship, right? You can engage with your mind as well as the emotions. I know a lot of people like to lift holy hands, and I like that too, but boy, I want to know that what I'm doing is reasonable. And so I hope also that this would better help you to withstand the rigors of either skeptical challenges to your faith, but also help you to withstand the rigors of investigation, right? You may have situations in your Christian life where you have doubts. And I want to give you confidence to know that the Bible can withstand the rigors of your skeptical analysis of it. Okay. Why do we engage in Christian apologetics? Why do we engage in apologetics at all? Can someone read to me 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15? And do I need to call on someone to read? Right? Do I just pick on like the first person here? And okay. And so I might even ask your name. I'm going to have to learn your name. What's your name?
Rochelle.
Rochelle?
Spell like Rachel though.
Ricola? What's that?
It's Rochelle, but spell like Rachel.
Rachel, okay, Rochelle, okay, very good. So Rochelle, can you read 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15? Mm-hmm.
But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense for everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence.
All right, very good. Did you catch that? Always be prepared to make, you've probably heard this before, right? Always be prepared to make a defense. Have an answer for the hope and the faith that's within you. And I think part of that is to have a rational response to challenges. Now, I think apologetics is helpful in our ability to share our faith, and I think you would agree with that. But also, in my humble estimation, apologetics is very useful for the Christian because I think it helps root your faith in something really solid. I remember when I'm going to reflect back to when I was serving in the Army. I'm a young man. Back then I had a full head of hair. I'm a young man, and I did not see the need to be part of a church community. That didn't seem important to me. And so I'm just going along, living life as I guess a backslidden Christian or whatever. And then life got rough. And I was saying and doing things that surprised me. And I realized I needed to fix this situation. I didn't know how to fix it. The only thing I could think of is, well, maybe I could try this church thing, which I had largely kind of dismissed as something that was unnecessary in my life. And I realized pretty early on, it's like, wow, okay, this is something that I need. I need to be around other men and women who are committed to following Christ. That is just something I need in my life, right? I need to be challenged. I need to be held accountable. I need to be part of this community. And then there was a group that had this Bible study. And we went through this book called Know Why You Believe by Paul Little. And it was basically an apologetics type of book. And I realized at the time that to that point in my life, I accepted the Christian faith largely because that's what I was taught as a kid. And I had never come to the point of saying to myself, is this reasonable? Is it truly reasonable for me to believe in the historicity of something like a resurrection? Right? That seems a little far-fetched. In fact, is it even reasonable to believe that there's some kind of God out there? And what I realized is that, yes, these things were reasonable, and it helped me grow a greater confidence in the Scriptures and in my Christian faith. And so to a large degree, I think apologetics is perhaps more important for the believer than even for the unbeliever, because it will help the believer find a greater foundation to their faith. And so I know this will help you share your faith, but I really hope it helps ground you in your faith. All right, I have here Jesus did apologetics. That's what your book says. If you go to page 13 in your textbook, that's what the book says. Jesus uses logical arguments, right? And in fact, anytime you make an argument, you're appealing to some kind of logic. And we all make arguments. We all take a position, and we all have a rationale why. So, but certainly Paul uses apologetic arguments. And if we go to Acts chapter 17, let's go to Acts chapter 17. Turn your Bibles at. Since this is a long passage, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of read this to you. Acts chapter 17. This is when Paul is at the what's it? I can't remember what. Areopagus. There we go. Yeah, for some reason I couldn't think of the name off the cuff. So he's at the Areopagus, and so he's standing there in the Areopagus, and he says in verse 22 of Acts chapter 17, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious." Okay, so where's Paul starting from in his apologetics? Where's his starting point? Oh, and by the way, I hope this is going to be interactive, right? I hope this is not going to be a lecture. If it's going to be a lecture, it's not going to be as engaging. So where does Paul begin in his presentation? Where does he begin? Okay, he knows his audience, right? And he begins by understanding what his audience believes and what his audience knows. So he says, "Men of Athens, I perceive in every way you're very religious, for I passed along and observed the objects of your worship. I find also an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.'" And Paul sees this as what? This is exactly right. This is my open door. And I'm going to walk through it. You're saying there's a God out there you don't know about? I'm going to tell you who this God is. And then he goes in, he tells them about the God who made the world and everything in it, the Lord of heavens and earth. He does not live in temples made by man, right? He's saying if there's truly a maker of the heavens and the earth, he cannot be contained in a man-made temple, right? Right? Right. God doesn't live in a tent. Okay. Nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything. Does that stand to reason? If God is the creator of all things, does he need anything from his creation? He's self-sustained. Does he want something from his creation? Oh, yes, he did. Exactly right. He wants a relationship with his creation, but he doesn't need that relationship. There's a distinction, right? Yeah. Nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth, having determined the allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us. And notice this. What does Paul do here in verse 26? What is he doing there? I'm sorry, say again? Oh yeah, verse 26. What do you think he's doing there?
I would say maybe he's saying you're also included in this.
Yeah, he is saying that. Yep, you are among these nations. But who is he quoting here in verse 26? Or is it verse 28? I'm sorry. That's why you're having a hard time with this answer, right? Because it's verse 28, not verse 26. I'm sorry. Right? Okay, so what, what is he doing in verse 28? Okay, that's right. He's quoting their own scriptures, isn't he? He's using what they believe is true, right? So he's finding common ground with his audience. Is that important as we pursue this apologetic task? If you're going to engage in a conversation with anyone, it helps first to establish where we both agree. Is that right? Yeah, that's a great starting point. Paul is hitting it on all cylinders here, right? Even your own poets have said, in him we live and move and have our being. For indeed we are his offspring. Being then God's offspring, we ought not to think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by the art and imagination of man. The times of ignorance God overlooked, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. Notice at some point in Paul's apologetic task, he's doing what? He's sharing the gospel. He's calling on men and women now to believe, right? He's calling them to faith, right? And at some point of your apologetic task, there needs to be that challenge, a call to faith. And then we see the gospel, right? When he says, because he has fixed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed, and of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. Right? There we go. There's the gospel. Right? Yes, go ahead.
I heard commentary on that passage before saying that Paul did really good at step by step reasoning it out.
Uh-huh.
And then when he said resurrection of the dead, said that the commentary said that was his failing point, and then that was a mistake.
That was a mistake?
Yeah, it's a gap in logic.
Okay.
What's your comments on that?
Well, it is not a mistake. The resurrection is not is something that can be, how do I say it? If the resurrection is true, it's a historical event, right? So a strictly logical argument probably won't go as far as you need, right? We need other evidence to bring into the equation to justify the resurrection or the belief in the resurrection. However, I don't think Paul made a wrong move here. Because again, apologetics is only going to get you so far. At some point, someone needs to exercise faith. Someone needs to exercise faith. Right? That's the whole point of the apologetics project, is to bring someone to faith. Strengthen faith. That's what Paul's doing. Now, faith is a choice. Faith is a choice. Right? People make decisions that are irrational. Am I right? So, I have found reason and logic doesn't often win the day. Right? Have you found that to be true? It doesn't often win the day. We are inclined often to believe or to assert that which is not grounded in any kind of rationale. And so faith is a choice. Now, I think rational arguments help us in the direction of faith, but at some point, a person needs to surrender, concede, fall in alignment to the authority of God. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, now I'm hoping this becomes more interactive. We are on page 25 of the text, if you want to turn there. Again, it's up to you if you elect to go there. I'm hoping to give you familiarity with this text, so you've kind of have been there before, you're familiar with where some of this information is. Yes, you can.
So, any point where Paul was talking about he knew where they're coming from, their poets.
Yeah.
I know that we can. Do you think that this was maybe Paul's approach to being like, hey, we're both human, let's have a relationship, let's have a conversation, and kind of making them relatable, as opposed to, hey, I know you, so I'm going to prove you wrong because I have the same evidence as you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think Paul is out to win the argument, to do a smackdown. I don't think that's what Paul's doing. I think Paul wants a relationship, yes, but he wants to build that relationship on the truth of the gospel. Yeah. And Paul's he's using the tools that are out there. You say that in him we live and move and have our being. You and I are saying the same thing. So really he's building rapport with his audience, isn't he? Yeah, go ahead.
Also kind of want to think, Paul is a human, these guys are human, but Paul also knows that these guys are living this lie.
Yeah.
So how much do you think his heart is heavy for these people? And he wants to be like, this is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wants to highlight it because he cares about this.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to see them keep walking on this.
Yeah. And notice Paul's not afraid to give them kind of the hard facts that he knows is going to be controversial. Because when he mentions the resurrection, what happens? Resurrection. We all know that's not true. But, Paul's not afraid to go there. Paul's not afraid to go there. Yeah. Yeah, good questions. Okay, so where should we begin our project of apologetics? Where should we begin our project of apologetics? Where should our starting point be? Okay, Christ.
10 major problems of evolution.
Okay, the problems of evolution, perhaps? Creation, yeah.
God.
Okay, God. Where on earth would we get this crazy idea of God? Right? That seems like a crazy idea. Why on earth would we investigate this question about God? Why on earth do you think we would ever bring up that subject?
I mean, it's a concept that every single person shares, even the atheists, like, they still share the concept of God.
Wherever you go, exactly right. Wherever you go in the world, wherever you go, people contemplate, think about, want to understand, have some kind of statement as who God is. Am I right? Wherever you go. I'll tell you this, even an atheist needs to make a decision about God. What is the decision the atheist has made? He's not there. And I'll tell you what, those people who want to talk about God the most are often atheists. Because doggone it, they've got an axe to grind. Oh, I know this God doesn't exist. Let's talk about how he doesn't exist. All the meanwhile, they're preoccupied with this concept of God. Right? Right? So it's not a crazy thing to contemplate this idea of God. Am I right? Does that seem like a reasonable place to begin? Okay. Because we could contemplate all sorts of crazy ideas, but it's this crazy idea of God which seems to be pretty important. Why do you think this crazy idea of God would be important for us to come to some kind of conclusion about?
I always think of, like, when you're talking to people and you have conversations, you always come to what's right and wrong,
Uh-huh.
and black and white.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a moral standard,
Okay.
then the conversation just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And you have to find where your moral standard starts.
Okay.
And it always comes back to God.
Okay.
Something. And
Yeah.
they don't want to admit that it's God.
Yeah.
But if God created everything, he has authority. And we have to get down to the baseline.
Yeah. And I think you're onto it, right? If God is out there, then we what? He's created us and we stand. Say again? Under him. We stand accountable to him, right? Right? So it's important to understand this God because we may have some kind of obligation toward this God. We may have some kind of responsibility toward this God. Go ahead.
Well, and it shapes our whole perception of how we go through life and how we look back on history.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are so many things that change morality-wise and just how we look at events when we put it through the lens of, how God measures what we should and should not do.
Yeah. And that shapes, actually, you're getting onto like the worldview. So belief in God, right? The Christian scriptures, we begin seeing the world through that lens or through that filter. I think that's kind of what you're saying, yes? Yeah. And so, there's also some things that we naturally ask. What are some of the things that we naturally ask just by our observation of the world around us? What are some natural questions we might be inclined to ask? What? Man, we've got all this stuff here, right? We've got the floor, we've got this building. I look at this building and I ask, how did this get here? How do you think this building got here? Builders came and built it, right? People put in the lights, people put in the carpet. I just stepped on my shoelace. I hope I don't trip over my shoe. Yeah, go ahead.
What is the relationship between all the things that exist?
Okay. That's a great question. What is the relationship between all the things that exist? So we've got this building that exists, right? There was a maker for this building. How about all that stuff out there? Where did that stuff come from? Like the trees and the mountains and the water. Have you ever thought about that? Yeah. Where did all this stuff come from? If the building needed a builder Does the creation need a creator? Then I look at me. Who made me? Right? I come across this building and I see its complexity and I assume that an intelligence was behind all this. And I look at the complexity of a human body. Does it make sense that an intelligence might be behind this as well? And then I look out in the world and what do I see? What do I see out in the world? Not really the world itself, but like the behavior of people, how they interact with other people. What do I often see?
Relationships with love, hate, anger.
Okay, yes, relationships, love, hate, anger. And when I see the love, hate, and anger, what do I naturally say to myself? Those things should not be, right? Right? It should not be that someone broke into someone's house and stole all their things, right? It should not be that someone comes along and threatens me with a crowbar, right? Or someone takes a crowbar and like smashes my windshield. Isn't that right? Right? Everyone, look, even the atheist says it's wrong to steal his wallet. Where on earth do we get these ideas that there's some kind of right and wrong that everyone else ought to conform to? Where does that come from? A moral code, right? But does it stand to reason that maybe God is responsible for all this? Maybe God's responsible for me? Maybe God's responsible for this stuff in my mind? Does that seem reasonable? So, the apologetics task is to ask this question. Is there some kind of higher power at work here? And so,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, go ahead. I'm going to tie my shoe while you ask a question.
Okay, you can tell me if this is a conversation that we're going to have later, but
Yeah.
I'm going to ask it anyway. So when you come to somebody, this is on the topic of right or wrong, you come to somebody
Yeah.
and you have that conversation and they don't believe that there is a God. So when you come to the bottom of the line and you're like, hey, why is it wrong to steal something? Well,
Yeah.
they're going to say because that hurt someone. Well, why is it wrong to hurt someone?
Yeah,
And they're like, it just is.
yeah,
We're like, no,
Yeah.
it doesn't, nothing
Yeah.
else works like
Yeah.
that. There's some reason for it.
yeah, yeah.
So, how do you argue that, right? How do you say, no, there is a moral law,
Yeah,
and it's not just something that we came up with over history, it's not traditional,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So where does it come from?
Where does it come from? Yeah, yeah. And actually, you're right. We're going to touch on that. It's called the moral argument in favor of the existence of God. It's one of the arguments we'll consider.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Good question. Now, I think I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but also if we look out in the world, I think we've already said this, we see all sorts of religions of the world. Everyone seems to make some kind of claim about God. And so this seems to be this inescapable idea that there's something out there, that there's some kind of higher force that either, or higher intelligence out there, either I need to affirm or deny. And wherever we go in the world, we cannot escape this. And so could it be that there's an actual God out there?
Well, along that line, I just think it's really interesting that we only see acts like devotion to God or worship rituals among human people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see those kind of behaviors exhibited in animals or, other lower life forms.
Uh-huh.
So it stands to reason that if you have this common occurrence that goes through humanity that you can't see anywhere else, that clearly there is something special about us.
Mm-hmm.
Points to that creator, since all of us do it, no matter where we are on the planet, how isolated or whatnot.
Yeah.
In fact, it's far more common that people do believe in a God
Yeah.
or some kind of
Yep.
higher intelligence.
Yep. Exactly right. That's a good observation, that there is a difference between the animal world and the humans. The animal world does not have this inclination toward understanding or wanting to know or even worship and serve God. Yeah. And so it would seem, since we have this crazy idea of God, it would seem that you and I are not alone, right? We all have got this crazy idea that there might be a God out there. And so So I think, and I think you're going to agree with me, that this is a worthwhile exploration. Yes? This is worth our time. This is worth our time to explore. Specifically, is there a God? Who is this God? What has he done? And what does he expect from us? Those would be good questions to answer. You want me to say that again? Right? Is there a God? Who is this God? What has he done? And what does he expect from us? So we need to now figure out how we want to go about our apologetics task. And there are several different ways we can go about this task. What do you think one of the ways we can go about this task would be? This is a hard question, I know. What's one way? This is pages 18 through 19 in your book if you wanted to follow along. What are some ways we could go about our task in pursuing our apologetics project?
We need to define clear communication. So define language.
Okay.
What words mean.
Okay.
If you're going to have a conversation with somebody, you need to make sure that the language you're using is the same.
Okay. That's okay. I like it. Did you hear what she said? We're talking about how we understand truth, how we adjudicate between different claims and finding common ground and so forth. Yeah, I'm gonna take your idea. I'm gonna put that on a back burner just for a moment. Okay. All right. Any other ways we could pursue our apologetics task?
So I feel like there's this common stereotype that religion is irrational or something people choose to comfort themselves about scary ideas. We should also look at like the irrationality of the other side and why it's not so irrational to believe in God.
Okay, so comparing different faiths and or different beliefs and okay, I'm going to take that. I'm also going to put that on the back burner too. Maybe I need to seed the results here. All right, how about this? How about we just go ahead and we just assume the Bible is true up front. Okay, we'll just presuppose the Bible is true as the first step to our project of Christian apologetics. What do you think about that approach? And I'm going to say right now, that is the most popular approach now to Christian apologetics. And you may subscribe to that view, and that's okay. But just so you know, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag early. That's not the approach we're going to use here in this module. The presuppositional approach.
If we're going to use the Bible as proof, we need to prove the Bible is true.
Okay. So it kind of seems like putting the cart before the horse, doesn't it? It almost seems like we're trying to show the Bible is true by using the Bible. What do you call that kind of reasoning? Circular reasoning, right? And so, furthermore, if you are an adherent of Islam, what might you say?
But the Quran is true, and therefore everything inside of it.
Exactly right. Why shouldn't I presuppose the Quran is true and start from there? Or if you meet an LDS friend, Latter-day Saints, why should I not presuppose the Book of Mormon is true?
Because it wasn't divinely inspired.
Okay, well, yes. Yeah, well, yes, but that's a later argument, right? Right? So in my humble opinion, okay, again, and you may be an advocate for the presuppositional approach, that's fine. The positive about the presuppositional approach is that the Bible is true, right? And so they're going to come to right decisions. The Bible is true. But just by asserting the Bible is true doesn't have an answer or response to someone who's an adherent of another religion, right? And it does seem like circular reasoning. It does seem like putting the cart before the horse. So we're not going to go that route, okay? What's another way we could pursue our apologetics project?
We should look at the language. So if we're going to use the Bible as proof, we need to prove the Bible is true.
Okay, what's another way we could pursue our apologetics project?
We should look at the language. So if we're going to use the Bible as proof, we need to prove the Bible is true.
We could either presuppose, maybe we don't like, maybe we're convinced. Yeah, Brad, you've convinced me. I'm not on board with the presuppositional model. I'm not going to presuppose the Bible is true going into this thing. Instead, I'm going to look at all the data. I'm going to look at the archaeology. I'm going to look at the existent writings. The what? Evidence. The evidence. That's right. I'm going to look at all the evidence, and the evidence is going to be where I'm going to start. Now, what is the weakness of that approach?
Well, if you don't have all the evidence, like a long time I thought the Hittite Empire disproved the Bible because they didn't have the evidence.
Okay. There could be gaps in the evidence. Yep. That is true. Yes.
Evidence when it's disputed. There's a lot of people that in other worldviews or Mormonism, they'll say archaeology where other people will dispute that and say that it's not, that it was never the case, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on how we look at our evidence.
Yeah, and I think you're getting at, see the two men debating there, the object that's written on the ground. One's saying it's a 9, the other's saying it's a 6. What's the problem there? Okay, the different perspectives, right? They're looking at the evidence in a different framework, a different lens. So now what I'm going to convey to you, what I'm going to assert is, before we do an apologetics project, everyone has philosophical commitments prior to doing the apologetics work. And they may be unspoken, and oftentimes they are, but you and I, we all have philosophical commitments prior to looking at anything. Okay? Go ahead.
I'll also say that one of the weaknesses of this is a quote that I've said before, but it is easier for us to deny solid evidence than to shift a worldview.
So say that again. It's easier to deny solid evidence than to what?
Shift a worldview.
Shift a worldview. Okay.
So if you know that people don't rise from the dead, then even if you know this man rose from the dead, you're going to deny it.
Oh yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Well, have you ever heard the story about dead men bleeding? Well, so this man said, he went to his doctor and he said, "Doctor, I'm dead." It's like, "No, I don't think you're dead." "Yes, doctor, I'm certain I'm dead." And so the doctor tried to show this patient that he was indeed alive. And so he took a cadaver and he cut the cadaver, and the cadaver didn't bleed, and said, this man is dead. And so notice there's no bleeding, right? Okay, I'll concede that. Dead men don't bleed. And then so the doctor cut his patient and started bleeding. And the response of his patient was, Doctor, look, I've proved you wrong. Dead men do bleed, right? So the problem is the definition of dead in this argument. And so the bleeding was just evidence that was seen differently by the two people. And so there's weaknesses in the presuppositional approach. There's weaknesses in the evidential approach. Then there's the experiential approach. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. And the experiential approach is like, I don't need to presuppose the Bible. I don't need the evidence. Doggone it, I just know the Lord is there. Right? I can feel it in my heart. I just have this inclination and this sense. And you ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. That's all I need to know. And so my experience with God tells me there is a God there. Yeah, go ahead.
That has the same issue as the presuppositional approach, because other religions can do these.
Okay, other religions, an adherent to Islam may have what he or she feels is a sincere experience with God. I would say their experience probably is supernatural, but not a supernatural experience with God. So, what's to adjudicate between someone's subjective experience here and another person's subjective experience there? Does that make sense? And so, now I will say this in defense of the experiential view, okay? If God is there and Christianity is true, should people who believe in Christ have an experience and a relationship with God? Yes. So you can come to the right conclusion with the experiential model too. You can come to the right conclusions with the evidential model. All those models, in my humble opinion, fall short. And so what I'm going to propose is what's called the classical approach. And the classical approach, remember I said that we all have philosophical commitments prior to entering into the apologetics project? The idea of classical apologetics is to understand, engage, establish those common areas of philosophical commitments before you move forward, before you look at the evidence, before you look at the Bible. So that's what we're going to, so in essence, what we're going to do, okay, you ready for this? What we're going to do, at least for the time being, we're going to take everything we know about the Bible, everything we know about God, or everything we think we know about God, everything we know about Jesus Christ, and we're going to set it out there in the hallway just for a moment. And we're going to see if we can kind of start from scratch and see if we can come to a knowledge of God before we get to the Scriptures. Now, I know especially the presuppositional camp is going to cry foul. You can't do that. You're giving away the farm, Blackstone. Right? You're already conceding the argument before you get there. I don't think that's true, and I don't think there's a harm to do this. But as you see, I'm going to cheat a little bit as we go along. I'm going to bring the Bible back in every once in a while because I just can't stay away for long enough. But anyway, that's how I propose we pursue our project of apologetics. Does that sound reasonable to you? Say again? As a baseline, yeah. So anyway, we're gonna check all that stuff at the door. We're gonna come to this room as if we don't know anything about God, the Bible, Jesus Christ, and we're just gonna start from scratch as best we can. This is in page 14. There are some things we're not going to talk about with our philosophical assumptions, our philosophical foundations. And I'm sorry, what's your name, ma'am? I didn't. Melina? Yes. Melina? You raised some of these questions here earlier. Some of these very baseline questions. What is truth? How do we understand? How do we know truth? There are some undeniable philosophical foundations that we could pursue here. For instance, let me ask you this. How do you know you exist? I breathe, right? How do you know you exist, right? Have you ever asked that question? That's a very engaging question. I have a book if you'd like to engage that question. Most people don't need to ask that question. Most people already know they exist. So there are answers out there. We don't have time in our space here to engage those questions. Like, what is truth? We are going to touch on that one a little bit. But how do we know something? Whether I exist? How do I know other things exist? Right? I think those are fascinating questions. And there are answers for those questions. We just don't have time to dive into those here in our module. So we're going to skip over them. Is that okay? If you want to talk about them at lunch, we could talk about them. That would be the time to talk about them. So we're going to go straight to the theistic foundations. Here are some of the undeniable philosophical foundations that I just spoke about. You exist. Your sensory perceptions are generally reliable. You perceive an external world outside of your mind. This external world exists. Again, most people don't need this stuff. I find it fascinating, but I am an outlier, right? Most people are already. But again, there are answers out there if you need it. I added to this list. My list is different from your textbook, you might notice. So, I like the textbook. By and large, it does what I want it to do, but not exactly. And so if you wanted to study this stuff, you'd have to pursue philosophy classes and so forth, if that's your cup of tea. All right.
Well, okay, do we not consider people who think that we don't exist kind of lost cause? Feels like arguing here.
So today, no one's going to come right out and say, I don't think you exist. What someone's going to say is, I can't be sure that anything outside myself exists. And due to that level of skepticism, I can draw all sorts of false conclusions about the world. That's probably what they're going to say.
Then you ask them, where is your reasoning based?
Yeah, where does that come from?
What proof do you have for anything? You have to start.
And that's what they're going to say precisely. I don't have proof for anything apart from my own existence.
I know people like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, if you're in the realm of thinking that nothing apart from yourself exists and you are legitimately questioning that, does that fall in line with a mental health disorder?
If you truly lived, no, if you truly live that way, yes. Does anyone truly live, does anyone truly live as if nothing else outside of them exists? No one truly lives like that, right? Right. Yeah, question.
Isn't that the Hindu belief? That it's like there is no physical, it's all like an illusion?
Okay, yes, and we're going to touch on that here in a few days. So I'm going to put that idea on the back burner again, okay?
I wasn't saying that I don't exist.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Hindus thought that everything was on equal value, not that it didn't exist. It's just like how much it matters was the problem.
So that the Hindu or the Eastern mindset, we're really getting ahead of ourselves. Can I put these on the back burner, and we'll pick them up later? I promise you we will. We have a lot of back burners, and if I don't pick something up, you got to call me out. All right, let me know. I failed to pick up the thing on the back burner. It's boiling and it's getting too hot. That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's smelling like smoke in here. All right. So anyway, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this because I just wanted to, I think we're just all going to agree that we exist, other things exist, there's truth out there, we can know the truth. Okay, we're good? Okay. Okay, so here's how I propose. This is our roadmap. Here's how I propose we do our apologetics project here. We're going to look at the theistic foundations, and we're going to look at 3 arguments in particular in favor of the existence of God. We're going to look at the cosmological argument, which really argues for a first thing. We're going to look at the teleological argument, which is going to look at an intelligent designer. And we're going to look at a moral argument. Right? And we've touched on the moral argument maybe a little bit deeper than some of these other things, which is the argument, why do I think there's some kind of right and wrong out there that everyone ought to subscribe to? After we look at the theistic foundations, we'll jump into the evidential foundations. We're going to look at the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and we're going to look into, if time permits, the reliability of the Christian scriptures. Can we be confident that these Christian scriptures are truthful and accurately recorded? Right? Yes, they are. Amen, sister, right? All right. And then you'll notice at the end there's always what? Call to faith. Right? Christian apologetics at best can remove stumbling blocks to faith. It doesn't substitute faith itself. Right? It's a tool in our toolkit. All right, how are we doing? Because I have now questions. Anyone? Questions? Anyone? All right.
Kind of had question time there.
Oh, say again?
I said we kind of had question time right there.
Okay. Well, that's right. That's right. And I didn't know how interactive this would be. So I didn't know if I needed to have a set time for questions.
We're as interactive as you let us be.
Okay, this is good. Good. Let me know if I could let you be more interactive. So really what I'd like to have happen is for you to come up with these ideas on your own. It's really what I would like. Okay. So we're going to begin with the theistic foundations. And as I said, there are 3 arguments for the existence of God that we're going to consider in this module. And the first one is the cosmological argument. And this is going to argue for a first. Actually, it argues for more than a first. And I hope not to confuse you by this. So the cosmological argument is going to argue the need for a first cause in a series. And we call this the cosmological argument because it appeals to what we see in the world. It appeals to the cosmos, right? The world. So that's why we call it the cosmos. And I know it sounds like a real fancy word, but if you think of it that way, the cosmos, the world, the stuff out there, right? It accounts for the stuff. Remember how I asked, where did this building come from? And you told me it came from a builder. The builder would be, in essence, the first cause for this building. And now we're looking at the world out there, the totality of the world. What is the first cause for the world out there? And like I said, we were going to check our Bibles at the door, but I felt like we had to go here at least temporarily because I wanted to root these things in the Scriptures so that you knew I wasn't just throwing a philosophical argument out there that had no foundation in the Scriptures themselves. And it would be hard for me to do that if we advance our argument to the point where we lost the opportunity. You know what I'm saying? What does Genesis 1:1 say? In the beginning, God created the heavens. That's saying God is what? He's the creator. He is the first. He is that cause for all this stuff. Isn't that what Genesis 1:1 is saying? Right? He is the explanation of why we have all this stuff here. Now the other one is a little bit different. Colossians 1:17. What does that say? Who's got okay. I'm going to pick on, what's your name, sir? Riley? Yep. All right. Could you read Colossians 1:17? So it's Rochelle and Riley and Melina. Okay. Rochelle. Rochelle. Like Rosh Hashanah? Like Rochelle. Rochelle? Not Ra. Ra with a, okay, Ra. Rochelle. Okay. All right, thank you for that correction. Riley, maybe by the end I'll have the pronunciations and the names correct. Okay, Riley, read that for us. Colossians 1:17.
And he is before all things, and by him all things consist.
Okay, he is before all things, and by him all things, what does it say? Consist. So God is not only the initiating cause of the universe, he is also what? He is the conserving cause. He is the sustaining cause of the universe. If at any point God decided not to uphold the existence of the universe, what would happen? It would disintegrate, right? Okay? So the cosmological argument really argues for both, right? They have it both the horizontal and vertical. I hope I don't confuse you. The horizontal argument, and you don't need to know this, but the horizontal argument argues for an initiating cause for the universe. The vertical argument argues for a sustaining cause of the universe. Both are considered the cosmological argument. That is more information than you need, so you can just forget that now. But if you ever hear those terms in the future, you heard it here first, right? All right. Yeah, all right. Okay, so I hope to show you these things as we go along. Now, the first to propose the cosmological argument in favor of the existence of God, at least in its fullest way, is this guy named Thomas Aquinas. You ever heard of this guy before? Okay. And so Thomas argues for an uncaused first cause and an uncaused sustaining cause for the universe. And again, I hope I'm not confusing you, right? Why did I put in uncaused, right? Why would I throw that in there? Because if I say God is the cause of the universe, what might a skeptic say? What caused God? And my answer is going to be, God has no cause. He is the primary first cause, an uncaused first cause for the universe. Right? That's what I'm going to argue. In fact, for there to be a universe, it demands an uncaused first cause. It demands one. So to make his case, he makes several observations. He sees, Thomas saw an unbroken series of events or causes, right? You think of it like a billiard table, right? The cue ball hits the 8 ball moves into the pocket, right? You see a series of different cause and effects relationships. So if there is a last thing in a series, there must also be a first. That's what he's going to argue. And something cannot serve as its own cause or reason for being, right? The 8 ball does not get motion until what? Until the cue ball strikes it. And then you transfer the motion, right? Did I answer your question before you got an opportunity to answer it? Or?
I said push it, but
You push it. Well, yeah, you could push the 8 ball, and that would give it motion. That's okay. So when we look at the physical world, when we see an unbroken series or unbroken chain of events, right, we have to conclude that there must be a first. So that's what he's going to argue. And I thought maybe an example that would really be a visual one for you would be the example of dominoes. Okay, so what's going to happen if I tip this first domino? What's going to happen? It's going to have a domino effect.
Depends on which direction you push it.
So I can't push it now, right? If you push it this way, nothing's going to happen, right? You got to push it this way. But if I were to push it this way, the motion of this domino is going to be transferred to the second, then the third, and so on and so forth, all the way down the chain until you reach a last and final domino. For the last and final domino to fall, you must have had a first, right? You can, but if you start from the middle, what becomes your first domino? The middle one, right? Right. So you can kind of kick the problem down the road, but you can only kick it so far. So this is an example of an unbroken chain. Can you think of any other unbroken chains or events in the world? Can you think of any other?
Yeah, people being alive.
You are part of an unbroken chain. Congratulations. You are the last of a series. Do you realize that? You are on the tail end of a chain of progenitors. Your parents begot you, right? You had parents. That's why you're here. Your parents had parents. That's why they were there, or they're here. Their parents had parents. And onward and onward and onward. And since there's a last, there must also be a first pair of parents. What's another unbroken chain or string that you see in the world?
Perhaps time.
Time, okay? We have a moment that we call today. In order to arrive at today, we must first traverse the day we call yesterday. In order to arrive at yesterday, we must first traverse the day before. And then so on and so on and so on. If there's a last in the series, a day we call today, there must be a first, right? Okay, I know this seems elementary, but I'm getting somewhere with this. Trust me, right? Oh, we're going to be like breaking in 5 minutes, aren't we? We're going to have to. Okay, that's fast. What's that? No, it's right on time. Okay, we'll see. I'm supposed to let you guys break from 10:30 to 11. Say again.
What I meant is like the time.
Oh, the time is moving. Not the clock was fast. The time is okay. You got it. Well, it was that. It was we were looking at the same number on the ground, but you and I had different perspectives. That's what that number was. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Okay. Now, if we were to look at this domino example, right? We see the last one fall, and let's say we took a video of this whole thing. And let's say we put that video in reverse, right? Now the last domino lifts up, and then the second to the last lifts up, right? We're putting in the video in reverse, right? We have this day we call today, and then the video goes back to the day we call yesterday, and then the day before, and we keep going back. At some point, we would have to arrive back at the first. We'd have to arrive back at the first. That stands to reason. What we couldn't do is to keep going back in time infinitely. Is that right? So if there's a last event that we call now, there must have been a first moment when the universe came into being.
Well, another thought is, yeah, we can keep going back in time because God is not limited by time. He made time.
Okay, yeah, God. Okay, so we went to 0 to 60 here pretty quickly here. No, that's okay. Okay, yes. So this is so outside the bounds, but I'm going to just say it. In my humble opinion, God lives a timeless existence. He must live a timeless existence to prevent the need for an infinite regress. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. Does that make sense?
What's an infinite regress?
We will define that here soon. Yeah, we have a little project here about an infinite regress. Yeah, very good. So let's go back to the first domino, okay? Let's go back to the first domino right here. Remember in our domino example? What accounts for the falling of the first domino? What initiates the motion of this first domino? And I just want to, what are the possibilities? What could we say? There are three possibilities that we could consider which would cause the first domino to fall. What's one of the possibilities?
Wind is one of the possibilities.
What is what?
Wind.
Wind. Okay. So there's some kind of outside force, outside the system that causes the first domino to fall. Whether it's a hand or whether it's wind or anything. So that's one. What's another one?
Just fell on its own.
Okay, it fell on its own. When you say that maybe there was an earthquake or there was some kind of instability, there was a quantum fluctuation. What do you mean it fell?
Some kind of instability, like there's something within the domino that causes it to fall.
Okay. So the force of gravity somehow caused it to fall because there was like an imbalance of the weight of the domino or something. Still, we're looking at some kind of force external to the system that's causing that first domino to fall. And think outside the box here.
I was going to say like in and of itself.
Okay.
Big Bang.
Okay, the domino causes itself to fall. Somehow the domino it has the ability to kind of rock itself and fall forward. Right? Somehow the domino has motion in and of itself to cause it to fall, or is able to generate motion in and of itself. What's another explanation? That the domino has always had motion, or that there was an infinite series of dominoes ahead of the first, which has caused it to fall. Okay, so in the first case, the falling of the domino is self-caused. And that we have this famous picture by M.C. Escher. Have you seen this before? You haven't seen that before? It makes for a provocative picture, doesn't it? Two hands drawing themselves. What's the problem here? How did it start? If you take this and put it in reverse, at some point you're going to have a blank piece of paper. And so how does this paper get started? Nothing starts. Something else has to start it. So the falling of the domino can't be self-caused. Right? This is a self-caused picture. At least that's what it's trying to show. But that's not possible, right? Nothing. Look, you can't give what you don't have. You can't give $1 million to someone if you don't have $1 million in your bank account. Am I right? So you can't give away. If the domino doesn't have motion, it can't give motion to another domino that it doesn't have. Nothing can be its own cause. Go ahead.
Technically, you could give someone $1 million, but you'd be crippling debt.
It'd be crippling debt. Well, someone would have to incur the debt, right? That's right. Someone's going to have to support that debt. Now, as we're going to see here shortly, we're not going to have time. It's time to go. How about this? How about we just take our break now? Yeah, why don't we? I guess we need to take a break. 10:30 to 11, right? That's our break. How about we take a break now and we pick up on this we get back. Are we good? Okay. All right. All right, we'll see you back here at 11. All right. Am I on? Am I still on? I am still on. There we go.
book, and I didn't know they were gonna do it late. And then I finished the book, and then I went to the theaters to watch Tron Ares, and they played the trailer with this. And I was like,
Well, it is 11 o'clock, and officially our break is over.
What's that?
Right, 11 o'clock, break is up?
Yeah.
All right. All right.
he's a very shy person. All right, and the lounge people are coming.
Are we gonna watch the videos on your Christianity in class, or do we need to time?
That's going to be on your own. Yeah, that's a homework assignment. Yeah. Yeah, the link. So if you go to the assignment page, I posted a PDF that explains the assignment, and the link should be there. So, yeah. It's on the grading app. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. So it'd take you about 30 minutes to watch the videos. Total. Yeah. So it should be pretty quick. Yeah. I think you'll like the assignment. I think you'll like it. Yeah.
Daniel, could we set it up on the TV to watch it?
It's a video, yeah. It's kind of like the Bible Project videos where a bunch of stuff is being drawn while you're listening. So, yeah.
What time? I was, what? Let's talk about it. I was thinking maybe 1:30, maybe?
Before we start in again, we had talked about some of these more basic philosophical things. If anyone is interested in these questions like, how can you be sure you exist? What are the philosophical arguments out there? How can you be sure other things outside of you exist? This is a book titled Philosophy of Mind by Edward Fesser. And I think he does a good job on this. So if this interests you, again, most people think they're ridiculous arguments, so why would we even consider them? But again, it intrigues me, so that's why I have the book, right? So there we go. I also wanted to jump back into the cosmological argument and maybe just backtrack a little so that we can kind of get in the flow of where we were at when we left off. We had talked about the falling of the first domino and what accounts for the motion of that first domino. And I said that there were three basic possibilities. One, there can be some kind of force or activity outside the series that provides motion to the first domino that starts the chain of all the dominoes falling. All right, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that somehow the first domino causes itself to fall. It becomes its own cause. Okay, it's like the picture drawing itself. The third idea is that the domino it receives its motion from another domino. Now, what does that do to our series? That makes the first domino really the second domino. Now, we might say, well, what if another domino caused that new first domino to fall? Now, we just kick the can down the road a little bit. Now, we might say that there's always been motion in the series, that there never was a first. There's always been motion there, right? So this is where we get this idea or this explanation of an infinite regress? Is an infinite regress a sufficient explanation for the motion of the series of dominoes? Okay? And so that's where we left off that time. Now, so we've seen the series of dominoes, and also we looked at the series of parent and children, right? That whole unbroken series. And we looked at the unbroken series of moments or days. And I think the same logic holds. Would you agree? The same logic holds for the unbroken chain of parents and offspring and the unbroken chain of days as it does for the dominoes to fall. Would you agree with that assessment? Okay. So just as in the case with the dominoes, there is required, I'm going to say, something outside the system to initiate that system, right? Because I think we can all understand that this is irrational. Something can't cause itself. You can't be your own parents. Am I right? Right? Today cannot be its own yesterday. It can't be both yesterday and today at the same time. So something outside the system must have caused the system to emerge into existence. But we still have yet to address this idea of an infinite regress. Why can't we say that there has been an unending series of days preceding this day we call now? Why can't we say there was an unending series of parents prior to you coming into being? Right? Why can't we say that? What's the problem with that? Well, we're going to do a little experiment, okay? We're going to do an experiment. And I have here a bunch of paper clips. And let's say that my goal is to suspend this paper clip without falling. How am I accomplishing that in my experiment so far? I hold my hand. Now let's say I don't like this idea of a hand suspending this paper clip in midair. So what am I going to do? Instead of depending on this hand, I'm going to put another paper clip in the series. If I can get the paper clip. There we go. So now I've solved the problem, right? This paper clip is no longer being suspended by my hand. It's being suspended by what? Another paper clip. However, there's still a problem. What's the problem? It's still being held in my hand. So what's my solution here? I'm going to do what? I'm going to get a third paper clip. Okay? And now look at this. Now I've solved the problem, right? This paper clip is being suspended by not the hand, but by this second paper clip. And this second paper clip is being suspended by a third paper clip. However, I still have a problem. What is my problem? I don't like the idea of a hand, right? I don't like the idea of something outside the system supporting that system. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get what? Still another paper clip. Now, again, I've solved the problem once, twice, 3 times. However, I still have this hand in the system. Okay? So now let's say in between, I have perhaps an infinite number of paper clips. If I had an infinite number of paper clips, I could keep going, right? I can keep adding paper clip after paper clip after paper clip. Would I ever remove the need for the hand? In fact, I could have an infinite number of paper clips here and not remove the need for a hand. Right? And I don't like this hand. I hope you understand in my analogy what the hand represents. Right? Something outside the system that is the first, notice it is the first in the entire system. It's the initiating cause. But what else do we know about the hand? If the hand at any time decided it didn't want to support the entire system, what would happen? Right? So the hand is not only the initiating cause, it is also the sustaining cause, right? So even if, let's say I could even put, I think it's impossible, let's say I could put an unending series of paper clips here. Without the hand preserving the entire series, the whole thing would fall apart, right? So what I'm trying to show is that an infinite regress, an infinite series of days leading up to the day we call today, an infinite series of parents and children leading up to your lives today, or an infinite number of dominoes, none of those serves as an adequate reason for the motion or for the being of the first. Does that help? Because why do you think I make this argument? There are some who would say that the universe has existed from infinity past. But if we can arrive at a day we call today, there must have been a first. How long does it take to overcome an infinite number of days to get to the day we call today? How long would that take? Infinity. And can you ever overcome an infinite number of anything? No. If you can, you have a very finite view of what infinite is. Okay? So let's not mistake the two. So if there is a last, there must be a first. An infinite regress is insufficient to account for this last thing. Now, so that's why I put that Colossians 1:17 verse in our mix. So that you would know that the Lord is not only the initiating cause, but also the sustaining cause. He holds it all together. By him all things consist. Okay, so we're going to cut to the chase now. Okay, I hope we've spent sufficient amount of time kind of building the foundation of the cosmological argument. Here's the simplified version of this argument. Everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause. And this cause has to be something outside the universe. The universe can't account for its own cause. Otherwise, we have that picture again of those two hands drawing themselves. So either the universe had a beginning or it did not have a beginning. And of course, we know it had a beginning. Otherwise, how did we get here? Does an infinite series of moments account for this moment we call now? No, can't proceed. We've already, go ahead.
I have a question though.
Yes.
So we believe that God is outside of time, but
Yep.
he's not outside of order, which means there's still one thing happened after another. There's still chronologic order.
Uh-huh.
How does this correlate to that? Infinite moments not being relative to time.
I guess I'm trying to understand what you're asking.
So if you say can you say your question again?
I guess I don't remember what I asked.
The question was basically, is there an infinite series of moments that led to today?
Yeah, is it possible that there's an infinite series of days leading up to the day we call today?
Right. So if we go outside of time, then
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But if we're inside of time, no, there wasn't.
And that's why I say the initiating cause needs to live a timeless existence. Otherwise, if the initiating cause is bound by time, we're left with an infinite regress, which we know is impossible. We can't overcome an infinite regress. So whatever this initiating, and I know this is kind of getting deep, but whatever that initiating cause is, it needs to be timeless. It needs to be outside the boundaries of time. Yeah. All right. Now, here's where a believer and a cosmologist, a modern cosmologist, may have some common ground. Right? A modern cosmologist says the universe is how old? Do you know what the current estimates are? 4 to 8 billion years old, something like that. Right? So that's what now if the universe is 4 to 8 billion years old, that means there means a beginning, right? No cosmologist is going to say, oh, it's always been here. Right? At least I don't know of one. Because if you were to take because what is observed is the expansion of the universe, and if you just reverse the video, everything would come together into a single point. They call it a singularity. And it was from that single point everything like burst forth into existence. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I might be jumping the gun here.
Yeah.
But where did all the stuff that made the singularity come from?
That is a very insightful question. Without something outside the system, I have no answer for that question. Yes.
And under that idea, would there be multiple singularities since it did happen once in wherever we are, and the universe would be infinitely vast, right? There is no cutoff point, because that implies there has to be something on the other side. of the
Yeah.
cutoff point.
Yeah. Yeah.
There could be other singularities.
Yeah, well, we couldn't possibly know of any other singularities. We'd have to go outside our own universe to know that, which the universe is the totality of everything, so we couldn't.
Into the multiverses now.
Well, yes, and that's an interesting concept. But again, how do we exit our own universe to determine whether or not there's another one out there? I haven't figured that out. But yeah, go ahead.
I wasn't sure if I heard you right. Did you say 48 billion or 428?
4 to 8 billion. That's a pretty broad range, isn't it? Right? The problem is they found stars in the universe that are evidently older than the universe itself. That is a problem. That I hate it when that happens when I'm looking at the universe. So, and I don't think they have an explanation why. I think they estimate some stars are like 12 million or 12 billion years old or something. So that's old. That is old. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I might be wrong, but I feel like I've heard somewhere that some theory is that this is not the first universe that existed, but it's just kind of been this compounding thing. which
Yeah.
just repeats itself.
Yeah, it has this. Again, we cannot possibly know what happened before the Big Bang, right? Because all our laws of physics and so forth all depend on what happened according to cosmologists. Again, just so you know, I'm not an advocate of the Big Bang, right? I see a lot of problems here. I'm just using their arguments, right? Because you're right. Nothing explains what happened before the singularity. All the laws of physics, they all break down once you have a singularity. And so how do we know what space and time or anything was like before then? We can't possibly know. We can only postulate this constant fluctuation of expanding, contracting universe throughout all ages. But again, since we have this moment called now, we know there must have been a first. Even if we kick the can down the road, billions and billions of years, at some point, we need something outside the system to initiate or be the cause of the system itself. All right. So either the universe had no beginning or it had a beginning. Of course, we know it had a beginning. Either this beginning was self-caused, uncaused, or caused by another. Again, a self-caused universe. That means the universe would have to exist before it existed. What do you think about that? That is so cool to say, and it's so impossible to do. It's like a round square. That's fun to say, but it's impossible to do.
Yeah, it's like a series of words. Just because you can put words in an order doesn't mean they're a sentence.
That's right. It doesn't mean there's a correlation to something in the real world just because I said it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the universe can't cause itself. We've already determined the universe couldn't have existed in infinity past. Therefore, what? Something outside the system must be the cause of the universe, and we call that thing God. That's what we call that thing, God. He is that initiating cause for the series of days we have, for all the unbroken chains we have. He is the initiating cause. So the universe had a beginning. This beginning was caused by a creator who exists outside his creation and sustains it. This creator we call God. Okay. Now, I want to say right now, we're not even close to determining who this God is or what this God has done. We just know, just by virtue of this stuff out there and what we observe, that there must be an almighty God out there somewhere. Do you agree with that? Okay, so we've checked our Bibles at the door, at least for now. We're just trying to look at this thing from as rational as a standpoint as we can, just from simple observation, and that's what we see. Any questions? Yep, we know today exists. I know I exist, and I know today exists. Since I'm the last in the series, there must be a first. Go ahead.
It's a little random, but what's the running age that creationists believe the earth was made?
There are differences of opinion. What was it? Go ahead.
6,000 to 6,500.
Okay, so somewhere I've heard estimates 6,000 to like 10,000 years. So, and I am, I'm going to say it. I'm a young Earth guy. That's what I am. And there are old Earth guys out there. They're believers in Jesus Christ, and God loved them. I just see it differently. I take the 6 days of creation as literal day and night days. But
Have you looked into Kent Hovind? Have you seen Kent Hovind's work?
I have some of his stuff. Yep.
I'm just curious if you at all, because I like his stuff
Uh-huh.
for that reason.
Okay. Yeah. I probably would like him too. Yeah. Anyway, that's my particular color, so that you know where I'm coming from here. So, all right. So no questions? Any other questions? Are we moving too quickly? Okay. All right. You can slow me down at any time. And so, here are the three arguments in our theistic foundations. The first one is the cosmological argument. The second one we're going to consider is the teleological argument, and that is the argument rooted in the evidence of design. The evidence of design. Here are just a couple of scripture verses to kind of root us in. Again, every once in a while, I've got to bring the Bible back into the room, because unless we root ourselves in Scripture now, it might feel like it's it might feel like we feel this disconnect to what we've just studied and whether or not it's rooted in the Bible. So and especially if someone's presuppositional in their approach, this would actually like be a palm branch to those guys, like a peace offering. Like, okay, we can see it eye to eye here. But of course, Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God. Go ahead.
Are there actually people who believe that the Bible is the start and they don't need to prove that the Bible is true? There are people who believe everything.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there are people who say, like, I've read it and it just rings the ring of truth to me, and so I don't need any other.
Right, but will they use, like, what was that first,
Presuppositional, yeah.
Are there people who actually have that stance and they'll use it in apologetics?
Yeah. So the super heavyweight champion of apologetics right now is presuppositional. So if you're going to come across apologists, most likely they're presuppositional.
They're pretty, like, strongly
Yeah.
opinionated on that.
Yeah. And they've got their reasons why. And again, I don't agree with their reasons, but I can see why they go that approach. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking like that approach makes it so you can use divine authority to make points, and if you're talking to an audience that also holds to
Yeah.
the authority of Scripture, like one Christian talking to another who
Yeah.
had varying beliefs, but winning them over to
Yeah.
the side they believe, like
Yeah. Or maybe they have some kind of church background. And
it's like
yeah.
if they already believe
Uh-huh.
Scripture is true,
Yeah.
then you can use that to go, if Scripture is true,
Yeah.
then you must believe that.
Yeah. I would actually go back to Acts chapter 17. Remember, Paul wasn't presuppositional in his approach, was he? He first appeals to what they saw as authoritative, right? He went to their scriptures, the pagan scriptures, to justify his position. And from there, he moved to the genuine scriptures, the real God, and then to the gospel and called for faith. And so, yeah, but presuppositional is the most popular one. I would say the second most popular would be the evidential approach. The one I'm presenting is the least popular one. And the reason I think it's least popular because I think it's the more intellectually demanding one. And so but I have to be me. So there I am. So that's the one we're going to go through. Yeah. All right. Okay. Anyone heard of this man, William Paley? You've heard of him? Okay, what do you know about William Paley?
Man, it's been a long time.
Okay, has anyone heard of you know about William Paley?
I don't. I was going to ask a question.
Yeah.
When you say that the sixth day creation, and I believe in the sixth day creation.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, I've never looked at believing in sixth day creation as more intellectually demanding because I feel like sometimes it takes more explanation to look at it that way. So just like, what do you mean by that?
Well, the classical apologetic approach, in my opinion, is more intellectually demanding because we're appealing to logical arguments, which, in my opinion, requires much more intellectual investment than the others. Now, my commitment to a six-day creation is largely rooted in my commitment to the authority of the Scriptures and what the text indicates to me. So I don't see room to understand it was day, it was night, the third day, and see that as any more than it was day and it was night, the third day. Right? I know, but I don't see millions of years there, and I don't see license to throw millions of years in there, because I don't see that used in other areas of the Scripture. So I'm using the Scripture to constrain my understanding of Scripture. If that, yeah.
For me, like that, it seems like pretty easy when after you put your faith in the Scriptures, that it doesn't take a lot of thought to explain that, I believe.
If you've already gone down the road that you believe God is there, you already know God is almighty enough to create the universe, so God has sufficient strength to do miracles, then it's a very short leap to think that God created the world in 6 days. Am I right?
Yeah.
That seems like a very short leap.
You're saying the intellectual demanding part is getting to the point where you have faith in the Scriptures.
Well, so the intellectual demanding part is the thing we're investing in right now. Trying to understand an infinite regress, right? That's right. Not everyone is contemplating those things by a standard course of a day's work. So, yeah. Does someone else have a question?
I just wanted to clarify to him that it was two different topics, two different conversations.
Largely it is, but yeah. Okay, William Paley. William Paley is known for his famous watchmaker analogy. And here's the watchmaker analogy. William Paley, he's walking with a friend. And they're walking through the woods. And there's this beaten down trail in the woods. And William Paley walks along and he strikes his foot against a rock. And William Paley looks down and he asks his friend, "How did this rock get here?" And his friend says something like, "Well, William, that rock has always been there." Now, what do you think about that response? Generally speaking, that seems like a reasonable response, right? That rock demands very little explanation for being there. Now, we might go back and say, well, Brad, you just talked about the cosmological argument, and we know that rock did not get there by itself. Yes, I concede all that's true, but generally speaking, the rock requires very little explanation. It's just a rock. It just happens to be there. Now, a geologist may disagree. Well, no, there were actual, and there were, but you and I would think that would be a reasonable response, right? The rock's always been there. Okay, let's replay this walk through the woods. William Paley's walking. He has his friend with him. And now William Paley comes across a watch. And he asks his friend, "How did this watch get here?" Now, if his friend were to say, "Well, William, the watch has always been there," that seems a little unsatisfying, right? It seems that the watch demands something of a greater explanation than the rock. Am I right? Okay, so just so you know, William Paley's argument has been the object of a lot of criticism. And if you bring up his argument, you may say, well, his argument has been largely discounted. Okay. However, we have to agree that William Paley is onto something. Am I right? He is onto something. There's something different about the rock than the watch. There's something different about the explanation for the watch to be there than the rock. And what is this? What is the difference between the rock and the watch? Why would we say it deserves a more detailed explanation than the watch and than the rock? Okay, it has purpose, right? And we understand the purpose of a watch is to Tell time. Okay, so we have function, we have purpose. And if, let's say we open up the back of the watch, what do we see when we open up the back of the watch? All sorts of gears and levers and things interacting with each other. There's a certain level of complexity there. Not only that, all the parts are working together, right? There seems to be this kind of coordinated assembly of these parts. Now, just for fun, let's say the watch that William Paley stumbled upon has a very, very unique characteristic to it. Inside this watch is a tiny little factory. And in that little factory has the ability to produce a watch just like itself. It is a watch that is a reproducible watch. William Paley asks, can the fact that I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So we have this fascinating watch that has the ability to reproduce itself. And so when William Paley looks at that, maybe William Paley would say, well, I think I understand how the watch got here. The watch got here by some kind of parent watch that was fabricated in the factory of its parent watch. And then so forth and so on down the line. So maybe the watch doesn't need an explanation. The watch itself is an explanation. You have this unending series of watches. Now, what do we know about an infinite regress? You need to have a first, right? You need to have initiating and sustaining cause. So we know that just because it's a reproducing watch, that the reproducing function itself doesn't account for the watch's existence. Are we there? Okay. So this watch demands a maker. This watch demands a maker. Now, I hope you see where I'm going, right? Maybe you don't. Well, in fact, we'll get here in a minute. Here's a simplified version of the teleological argument. Everything that exhibits function and complexity is the product of an intelligent designer. Biological organisms, like you, exhibit function and complexity. Therefore, biological organisms are the product of an intelligent designer. Clear? All right. So, when William Paley saw this watch, he had to make a judgment, didn't he? He had to make a judgment. There's something different about this watch compared to a rock. What was the mental analysis that William Paley applied to the watch to differentiate it and the need for some kind of an intelligent designer compared to the rock that didn't need an intelligent designer? Does that question make sense? Do I need to say that again? What was the mental analysis that William Paley used to discern or decide that the watch demanded an intelligent designer where the rock did not? Does that help?
I would say the complexity part of it.
Okay, complexity is one of them. Yeah, what's another one you think?
You said earlier that it has a purpose.
Okay. Yeah, function and complexity. Yeah, you put those things together and boom. Yeah, function and complexity. Very good. Okay, let's go back to, let's see. We know this to be Mount Rushmore, right? And the Black Hills of South Dakota, they normally look something like this. So this is a lot different than this. Now, this we would say, does this have an intelligent designer or not? Now again, we know that the universe has an initial cause, but let's just looking at that, is this the product of intelligent forces? The shapes and sizes of these rocks. We would say go ahead.
I would say they're the results of a law, but not necessarily an intelligent cause.
Okay, they would be the result of the physical forces of the wind and the sun and the rain, the normal erosive forces that we see, right? So not a product of intelligence. Would we agree on that? Would we agree that this is a product of intelligence?
No, I was just there to begin with.
What, say that again?
It was just there to begin with, man.
So this one would be, right, the product of intelligence. So why is that? Why have we made that conclusion? Like you say, function and purpose. And really how do I say it? In academic circles, it's the principle what's called specified complexity. Specified meaning it has function, complexity meaning it's complex. And so here's an example of something that's complex but not specified. Why do I say that? Why is it complex? You have all sorts of different letters there, right? Why is it not specified? It doesn't say anything. There's no meaningful information there, am I right? Apart from AI. I guess there's something meaningful there. But, oh, you can see map? Okay, so well, that's, nap right there. Yeah, okay. All right. So, but now, why is this specified and not complex? Say that again? Yeah, I could have just turned those over by random selection, right? Right? They spell something, so it's specified, it has a function, but it's not complex. Now, in both these cases, am I right to say that an intelligent could have put all this together? Right? In fact, I took these pictures. I was the intelligent force behind these pictures. But you don't know that for sure because this one's only complex and not specified. This one's only specified and not complex. Does that make sense? Right? We can't be sure an intelligence is behind this. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Now, what happens when we come across the Gettysburg Address? What will we conclude?
Probably a million monkeys were typing on each other.
Yeah, probably a million monkeys did this thing. How long would it take a million monkeys, right? A million years and never come up with this, right? This is both specified and complex, isn't it? We have specificity, we have a function, and we have a complex arrangement of different letters to communicate that information. So what I'm going to say is whenever we come across something that exhibits both function and complexity, we automatically assume there was an intelligence behind that thing. That's the natural assumption.
Are we using this as an argument starting with our baseline? Like, we know nothing.
We know, right now, all we know is God created all this stuff. Right? That's from our last argument. We know God created all this stuff. There's a God out there. Now, what about me? What about me? When I look at me, can I be confident that God created me? So that's where we're going. That's why I use the watch, because Paley uses the watch, the funny watch with the little factory inside, because humans are kind of like that, right? We have a reproductive function. Right? But that reproductive function does not account or sufficiently account for the existence of the entire series or the chain of people. So we would say when William Paley opened up the back of this watch, would he have seen something that was both specified and complex? He would have. Now I want to walk you down a little trail here. Okay? We see here a stone arch bridge. Does that exhibit specified complexity? What is the function of this bridge? I've already let the cat out of the bag. What's the function of the bridge? To walk across, right? You want to be able to either walk under it or walk over it. Right? That's the function of it. You're trying to span a certain gap. Right? So that's the specificity. How do we know it's complex? Okay, yeah. Do we see rocks typically in the arch formation? You're right. The arrangements of rocks communicate to us a complexity of those rocks. Additionally, all these rocks they're approximately the same size, right? So there's uniformity in there. It almost looks like a Lego thing you could build. So, Okay, now I have another stone arch bridge here. Now this also exhibits specified complexity, am I right? We know the function. The function's the same as this one. Is it as complex as the first one? It's less complex because the builder didn't decide that it was necessary to make all the rocks the same size. But it still exhibits specified complexity. Am I right? Okay. Now, if you're from New England, which I am, that's why I'm mourning the loss of the New England Patriots yesterday. But if you're from New England and you ever walk along kind of the backwoods, you will find a lot of these stone walls. Okay? Does this exhibit specified complexity? Does it exhibit purpose? What do you think the purpose is? Okay, it's a barrier, keeping people out. And also, what was? It's it's in a straight line. Yep. Usually they were used for property boundaries, right? And so I would say yes, it exhibits specified complexity. Now, certainly the specificity is well known. The complexity, a little less so. Now, in theory, we might see this kind of occur naturally. I know that would be very unusual. But I would think our natural conclusion would be what? Was the designer the result of the stone wall? Okay, all right. So certainly it's less specified and less complex than our stone arch bridge, but our wall still exhibits specified complexity. Okay, now what is this here? Stonehenge. All right, do we know the function of Stonehenge? It's a portal to one of those alternate universes, right? Right? What's that?
I can't remember if it was like for rituals or like for like the calendar of sorts. I'm not sure.
Whatever function Stonehenge has is strictly speculative, as far as I know. Right? Apart from being a portal. That's pretty well documented, that it's a portal to another universe. Well, some suspect it would be a calendar. Again, I think it's all speculative, really. A time machine. Is it complex? It's complex, right? You don't see rocks in these type of formations. So it's complex. Its specificity is pretty sketchy, but when we see Stonehenge, we conclude what? Someone made it. It's product of an intelligent designer. Okay. So let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say we actually send a group of astronauts to Mars. And let's say they find this on Mars. What would this mean? Space aliens, right? This Stonehenge on Mars. What a discovery that would be.
Stonehenge to be built in the first place.
Say that again?
These are the aliens that ordered Stonehenge to be built.
Yeah, maybe they came down to Earth and built it as a portal to their world. Exactly right. So we have Stonehenge on Mars, and so everyone would say this is evidence of extraterrestrial life. Am I right? Absolutely. Okay. So we don't understand the function of Stonehenge. We understand it's a product of a designer because it's complex. But really, how complex is Stonehenge? You're stacking some rocks on top of each other. I mean, it's complex, but is it complex? Go ahead. Yeah, they're super heavy.
I was going to say that, like the fact that they had to move that from because like supposedly the rocks that were used are just not found in that area, and so
They had to transport them.
a long ways,
Yeah.
and then the means of transport's also in question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like stone structures, they're huge stones from a far away location.
Uh-huh.
To get in there.
Yeah. So the world would be all in a tizzy if we found Stonehenge on Mars, right? That is clear evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence in life, right? Right? So Stonehenge demands a designer, okay, because of its specified complexity. Okay, ready for this? What about the astronaut? Which exhibits greater complexity and greater specificity, the astronaut or Stonehenge? The astronaut. What does the same scientific community conclude about the astronaut that it doesn't conclude about Stonehenge? Right? This demands a maker, this doesn't. Do you see the disconnect there? You see the disconnect, okay? Why the special pleading? Why the one, not the other? And so Stonehenge demands a maker. The watch demands a maker. The astronaut demands a maker. That's Paley's argument. If this level of specified complexity demands a maker, then certainly this level of specified complexity demands a maker. And if this level of specified complexity demands a maker, then the astronaut and the level of specified complexity there demands a maker. It just stands to reason. It just stands to reason. Now, there's one more term that I want to introduce into our vocabulary. We've talked about specified complexity. There's also this concept of irreducible complexity. And I think have you heard this one before? Irreducible complexity? Okay, let's take, for example, the mousetrap. The mousetrap is a pretty basic machine. You've got a pin, you've got a lever, you've got a spring, and then you've got this rigid base here. Okay? And so if the mouse comes, and I guess bait would be the other part of the machine. Now, if the mouse were to strike the lever, what happens? This spring would be released and it would, boom, smash our poor mouse. Right? Yeah. So now, what if I were to take away just one of the functional parts of the mousetrap? What happens to the entire system?
You get life. The mouse will survive.
The mouse will survive because the entire machine will fail to function, right? Okay, now let's go to something a little more complex here. The watch. What if I were to take out one of these gears, one of these levers?
We'd be done already.
Okay. So if there was any kind of function at all, it would be compromised function. It would no longer be able to tell time, right? So, well, that's right. A broken watch is right twice a day. That's correct. So again, irreducible complexity says something is irreducibly complex. If you were to take away any one component of the machine or the system, the whole thing would fail to function. The whole thing quits. Okay? And the classic example of this would be the bacterial flagellum. You've got this whipping tail in this thing, and if you were to take away any one of the parts of the tail, the tail no longer continues to function. And if the tail fails to function, what happens to the bacterial flagellum? It dies, right? Because it depends on its movement in order to live. And so again, when we see things that are irreducibly complex, we automatically assume it's the product of a designer, an intelligent designer. So, let's go into a human cell. A human cell is comprised of a bunch of organelles. Can anyone describe me what some of the organelles in a cell would be?
It has the powerhouse. I just don't remember what it's
Mitochondria? Yeah. What else? Anything else? What's this thing? That's the nucleus. This is the endoplasmic reticulum, right? I don't remember what that does. And then you have these ribosomes, right? Now, what if you were to take out any one of these organelles from the cell? What happens to the cell? The cell will die. It will fail to function. And so we understand this to be irreducibly complex. Does it also exhibit specified complexity? Doesn't it look a whole lot like this?
Similar, but not.
Well, but yeah. Right. Yes. So it exhibits both. So the cell must be the product of an intelligent designer. If we're going to be consistent with our argument, right? If that's important to us. Now, each one of these cells make up different organs in the body. Am I right? What's one of the organs in the body? The heart. Now, what if you were to take the heart out of the body? What happens?
You don't need the blood
You have no need for blood. That's right. Like dead men can bleed, right? So, or like, if let's say you take out the kidneys, right? Can the body survive? So, you have to have one. So, is the body irreducibly complex? There is some redundancy in the body, though, right? You can take one kidney out. But if you took them both out, the body's done. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I like the gallbladder you can take out. You can take out the appendix, right? There are some things you can take out. Your tonsils, yeah. I mean, you can cut off an arm and so forth, but there are some things you can't take out. Does it show specified complexity here? What's the function of the heart? Pump blood, right? Right? It exhibits function, exhibits complexity. And so there's complexity at the cellular level, there's complexity at the organ level, and then there's complexity on the system level, right? The organs make up different systems. What if you were to take out one of the systems here? Let's say we take out the respiratory system. What happens to the entire body? It dies, right? It fails to function. Right? Again, it exhibits specified complexity. It exhibits irreducible complexity. In fact, the human body is irreducibly complex 3 times over. At the cellular level, at the organ level, at the systems level. It's specified, complex at the cellular level, at the organ level, at the system level. So if a watch demands a maker, how much more does a human body demand a maker? Isn't that the argument? So like William Paley, we regularly make judgments about which things are the product of the non-intelligent natural forces of nature and which things are the product of an intelligent designer. Okay, that's where we're back to the Mount Rushmore example. The specified complexity of biological organisms exceed the standard we normally use to determine whether non-living things are the product of intelligence. That's where we get our Stonehenge example. So if Stonehenge demands a maker, the watch demands a maker, then certainly the astronaut demands a maker. So if we're to be consistent, the complexity and specificity of the constituent parts of each cell, each system, and each organism all rule out the possibility these came about by coincidence. Answering the question, why are there humans? The answer would be they have always been here. That's really not an answer. That they came about by natural forces. Those are not answers. Those are answers that, they're answers, but they're inconsistent if we're going to be consistent with our pattern of analysis, right? Go ahead.
How would you defend this argument with the definition of complexity and purpose against someone who believes that humans have no purpose?
I would ask, does your heart have purpose? And the answer is yes. Does the endoplastic reticulum have purpose? Yes. If we're looking for greater moral purpose, that's a different question than functional purpose. And so we're looking at functional purpose here.
Yeah, I guess that would fall more into moral.
Yeah. And we'll get into that too. In the moral argument. I'm not sure we do get into purpose here later on, but that's down the road at our worldview. Yeah. So if we're to be consistent, that's what we have to say. So therefore, there must be a designer of human beings. This intelligent designer is who we identify as God. Okay, we got that God guy again. He's the maker of all this stuff, and he's the maker of me, right? He's the maker of all this stuff. He's the maker of me. What do you think some objections to the teleological argument might be? What do you think some...
Before we get into objections,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is order evidence of a designer? I'd say so. Everything that you
yeah.
pointed out, there's an order.
Yeah.
Every part of what you pointed out, it's intentionally put in a specific order. So one could argue that by chance, if you give it enough time, there would be order. So is order itself evidence of a designer?
I'm trying to answer the question carefully because like F equals ma, the physics equation F equals ma, that is an equation that exhibits order, right? It exhibits kind of order in the universe. And I would say yes, it does demand a designer, but I'm not including that in this argument. Okay, this is just I'm really focusing on function here instead of order. But I would agree with you that it does, but I would have to use a different argument. That makes sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Wouldn't also the fact that, like, isn't everything moving towards decay and everything is entropy and falling apart pretty much?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
order would subsequently be the opposite of what is actively happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
No order apart from disorder. Disorder cannot turn into order.
That's right.
Scientific law.
Yeah. So let's say it's 80 degrees in here. It's really hot. And let's say outside it's negative 10. What happens when I open up the door? Does all the heat from the negative 10 temperature come in here and make this room hotter? Yeah. It doesn't. No. What happens is there's a drive toward uniformity, right? There's a drive toward uniformity. And there's so much cold air out there that we'll never see the incremental bump in temperature out in the external world that our little 80-degree controlled environment added to the ambient world. And so basically we go down to negative 10 in here, right? That's the whole drive of the universe. So that's the principle of entropy. Everything's looking to become uniform. So whenever we see order, a collection of things, that does give evidence that there is a designer or a collector or an organizer. That make sense? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think some objections might be to an intelligent designer, to the teleological argument? I have one up here. The scientific process is in jeopardy. It's in peril if we invoke the forces of an intelligent designer onto the world. Right? Well, again, yeah, that's a good question. Why would that be?
I think an observation just on the question is science is so focused on the laws that cause things, they don't realize someone made the laws in the first place.
Uh-huh.
So focused on, gravity. They don't realize someone had to make gravity happen first. But they would use gravity as evidence for an argument and not go beyond that.
They would argue that gravity always was and always will be.
Right. But
Well, the idea here is the mindset of a lot of the scientific community, at least currently, is that you as soon as you bring in the possibility of an intelligent agent, you've destroyed the project of science, right? Because science only considers, right, the cause and effect of natural forces, is what they're going to argue. Now, what are some problems with that point of view? Most of the early modern scientists were believers in God, right? And so, did their belief in God inhibit their ability to, like for instance, Sir Isaac Newton? Did his belief in God as the originating force of the universe restrict him from coming up with F equals ma? Right? Does that mean the calculus that he invented is somehow deficient because he believed in God? No. Our commitment to origins, our commitment to a creator, should not impact our pursuit of science. Right? We can debate origins all day long. But that we live in a universe that is governed by predictable, knowable laws, that I don't think anyone's arguing that. That makes sense? So, concluding an intelligent designer, in my opinion, does not end the scientific process. Now, if we just say, well, I'm not going to analyze or investigate the natural world because I believe in God, I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I think we're told and we're instructed and to know and understand this world God has made.
Like there's a verse somewhere, I forget where it is, but it's something like, it's the glory of God to hide things and the glory of kings to seek them out or something.
Oh, okay, I haven't heard that before. Yeah, neat. Yeah.
I didn't know what verse it is, and I know I didn't say it right.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. What is another objection you might hear for the teleological argument? That this whole specified complexity is really just what? It's just an illusion, right? That it all came about, right? That the natural forces of the wind, the waves, the rain, the sun, all that is sufficient to bring about specified complexity in human beings. Now, why is it insufficient to bring about specified complexity in a watch or in Stonehenge? Is really the question, right? If we're going to be consistent, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just reading this question here. This is disproven simply by the fact there's no evidence for this argument. There's nothing in creation that has ever improved itself over the course of evolution. So saying the fact that, oh yeah, natural selection and mutations and all that would lead to better society or different species like we have now, there's no evidence for that. We have never seen it happen.
Well, we've never seen a violation, again, of that law of entropy, where we move from, yeah.
Well, and then mutation is always a loss of information and not a gain of information, and when you do have a mutated something or another,
Yeah.
it's always kind of deficient in some kind of aspect, so it's more vulnerable, though it is more like niche for a specific purpose, and that mutated thing often gets killed off quicker than the unmutated.
Yeah. Well, did everyone catch that genetic information is lost during mutation? It's not gained. Really, there's no understood mechanism as to how we get from a very simple single-celled animal with a very basic and simple genetic coding to something of complex genetic coding like we have. Right? What is that vehicle? Mutation itself only can change what is there. It cannot bring more information to the table, right? So, what's another one? Oh, here's one. Maybe this is really stretching a little bit, but that humans do not exhibit what some would argue would be optimal design, right? An eagle has better eyesight than a human. Gorillas are stronger than humans or whatnot. Humans don't exhibit optimal design. What would be a response to that? This is kind of an engineer's response. Go ahead.
I know, I kind of think about it as like, what do we value the most? Because I don't need the strength of a gorilla, nor
Yeah.
do I need the eyesight of an eagle.
Okay.
The way my mind works and how my body functions in this world is a lot more optimal, arguably, than both the gorilla and the eagle. Like the gorilla doesn't have the same ability to throw as a human being does.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can do great things of like force, like ripping apart stuff or smashing.
Yeah.
But if you wanted a gorilla to throw a baseball or a monkey, for instance, they would not be able to do it effectively by their bone structure and the way their muscles are designed.
Yeah.
I mean, ask a falcon to write a paper, they can't do it.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would argue just along those lines, but it would incapacitate us to a large degree if we were as strong as some animals or as big. Like, imagine if we were all elephants, we have the same mindset. So,
In the same size, we wouldn't be able to fit in this room.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But we have the capacity to be stronger than all of them through complex design, right?
Yeah.
We can build excavators and throw any animal around we want, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
It's not how our designer designed us to be.
Okay. All right. Say that again.
It's not how our designer designed us to be.
Okay. Get this. All right. Why didn't the designer of this building build this room bigger? Why didn't he? Wouldn't that be more optimal? Why is that? Why isn't this room bigger?
I'm bringing the Bible back in. It says in Jeremiah about the potter's house.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you're right. You're onto something here. The designer is not deficient for designing something the way he or she wanted to do it, right? Right? Like we can say Leonardo did not paint the Mona Lisa as well as he could have, right? He should have done it differently, but Leonardo's the artist. So he gets to decide how he paints the Mona Lisa, am I right? Okay. So we might not like the way he painted the Mona Lisa, but we can't deny that that's the way he chose to do it. Additionally, when you get to things, if given certain physical constraints of the universe, oftentimes design requires what's called trade-offs, right? If I do this, that restricts me from doing this, right? And so in a physical world, granted, or if given the constraints of the physical world God created, then there's constraints as to how we humans are going to be in some regards, right? And so this is not a knock against God. What the critic fails to be able to do is say how he or she would be able to design humans any better, right? No ideas there. It's like being an armchair quarterback, right? It's always easy to be a critic. It's hard to get out in the field and actually do it.
The superhero comics have given an example on how they would design humans better.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just put tights on, right? Save the world. There we go. Go ahead.
I would just add it's a matter of purpose. So,
Uh-huh.
for example, if you look at a fish, it's optimally designed for water life.
Yeah.
So when something is created for a purpose, doesn't mean it's not designed optimally overall.
Uh-huh.
It's designed for something specific,
Yeah.
and that's optimally designed for
Yeah.
that purpose.
Yeah. And the purpose of the designer is in the mind of the designer. Yeah. All right. All right. Any questions? Teleological. Go ahead.
More of a comment of like, on that thought of like not optimally designed is like, God's not done with us either. So it's,
Yeah.
this isn't the final product.
Well, yes. There'll be a resurrection. There'll be a glorified body. Yes. So as beautiful or as plain as you may be now, we're all very plain in comparison to that glorified body we will someday enjoy. That make sense? That's right. Okay. I don't know if we're going to have time to make it through the next one. We might be just falling behind a little bit, but that's okay. Are we moving at a too fast of a pace? Are we doing okay? You like it? Okay. This next one is, so we've been through the cosmological argument, right? We know there's stuff here. Who's responsible for all this stuff? We've concluded it's God. And I'm looking at me. Who's responsible for me? Me. I'm responsible for me. That's right. But ultimately, God's responsible for me being here. And now, why do I have this sense that there's something wrong in the universe? Or maybe even more importantly, why do I have a sense that other people's behavior is objectionable to me and I describe it as wrong? Why do I do that? And so the third argument is the moral argument for the existence of God. And this argument appeals to our general sense of right and wrong. And I am showing here Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. And it seems to indicate to us in Romans chapter 2, 14 and 15, there is this moral understanding that's written on our hearts that we all apply to others and we all seem accountable to. Where does this come from? Where does this idea come from? Now, a very well-known proponent of the moral argument is C.S. Lewis. And again, this is part of your homework assignment, your writing assignment, is you're gonna watch 3 videos. It covers the first 3 chapters of C.S. Lewis' books, Mere Christianity. And I think Mere Christianity is probably the strongest presentation of the moral argument. Another presentation of the moral argument. Have you ever heard of Timothy Keller? He wrote a book called Reason for God, Belief in an Age of Skepticism. He uses the same argument here, and I think he uses it very effectively. And so if you want another resource, and he's a very good writer too. So maybe even a little simpler read than C.S. Lewis, in case that interests you. So C.S. Lewis is going to argue that all people all over the world, they have this inescapable idea, not only of a basic sense of right and wrong, but also that all people should somehow uphold this standard. Now, if this standard were simply something that you and I applied to others, then we might say this behavioral standard is just an invention of our own minds. Yet if we're honest with ourselves, then we must concede that we all fail to flawlessly uphold the self-same standard we expect others to follow. Do I need to say that again? If we're all honest with ourselves, we all fail to uphold the self-same standard we expect others to follow. So this law doesn't seem to just originate with you and me. I mean, if it was a law, I guess I would flawlessly uphold it. There seems to be something objective about this standard. It is a standard which appears to come from outside humanity, from a moral lawgiver. And he's going to make the argument this moral lawgiver is the person that we call God. So here's the simplified version of the argument. An objective moral law requires a moral lawgiver. There is an objective moral law, therefore there is a moral lawgiver. And this moral lawgiver we call God. There we go. So here's the first one. There tends to be a basic standard of moral behavior to which all people in every culture subscribe. And I think maybe the best example of moral behavior is my friend Calvin from the Calvin and Hobbes comic strip, right? Okay. Now, I need to qualify my statement that there tends to be a basic understanding of all people that there's some kind of right and wrong out there, right? We understand this when we are the victims of its violation, right? Let me give you an example. Calvin asks his mom, "Gosh, it sure looks like rain. It's probably a sunny day out." And his mom looks up, "Rain? What are you talking about? There isn't a cloud in the sky. Sunny, bright blue day." And then Calvin says, "You don't think it looks like rain, huh?" So mom gets back to work. "Don't be silly, Calvin." So what does Calvin decide to do? He's going to soak his mom with a sprinkler. Now, why do you think Calvin's going to soak his mom with a sprinkler? Well, he wants attention. Do you think he's going to get some kind of an amusement out of soaking his mom? I think so. Now, do you think right now Calvin is thinking, "Boy, this is morally wrong"? No, why isn't he thinking that? Okay, that's right. Right now, he doesn't see how he's going to suffer any of the consequences, right? I'm just going to soak mom, and boy, that's going to be amusing. And mom may chase me, but I'll grab Hobbes and I'll run away. She'll never catch me, right? Okay, that's probably what Calvin is thinking, okay? And so does Calvin at this point consider the moral implications of his behavior? Well, no. Well, I think no, because he thinks he stands to gain from this moral behavior. Right? Yeah, go ahead.
So I remember a different strip
Uh-huh.
in this comic.
Yeah.
Or not in this comic specifically. I have read the entire pretty closely.
Yeah, we have him at home.
Anyways, I'm pretty sure he knows he's being bad, but there were one strip where he's talking about heaven and whatnot. He's like, "What I like is he enjoys to be bad."
Uh-huh.
So he's like, "I wonder if we're allowed to be bad in heaven."
If you find that, send it to me. I would love to include it here because that's probably a better example than the example I give here a little bit later on. Yeah. Okay, so let's now move to another Calvin and Hobbes comic strip. In this case, Susie somehow has stolen Hobbes. "Come back here with Hobbes. Put him down. Hobbes, bite her. And then Susie makes it to her home, says the na, 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 and closes the door. Now look at Calvin's response. We see lightning strikes and skull and crossbones and a knife and stars and so forth. What is he thinking? What is he thinking here? What's that? Violence, right? Because this is what? This is war because this is what? Susie's committed what? A crime. This is injustice. This is injustice. How dare she steal Hobbes? Right? How dare she steal Hobbes? Look, a moment ago, folks, this was funny. Right? Wasn't this funny? Why all of a sudden now is Calvin saying this is not funny, this is serious business? Right? What's going on here in Calvin's mind?
He was the one who was wronged.
Okay. So he knows there's been a violation of the moral law because now he's the victim. Right? So I'm going to say this. Oftentimes we may fool ourselves in not knowing what this law is until we become the victim. We might not think twice about lying to someone until we are lied to. We might not think twice about stealing something unless something is what? Stolen from us. Right? And again, I have to bring the Bible back into the room. Do you remember the story of Laban? He is Jacob's father-in-law. You know, Laban didn't think twice about cheating his son-in-law. Time and time again, changing his wages, changing the deal and whatever. As soon as Jacob takes off and Rachel steals one of Laban's little idols, what does Laban do? I'm going to go off. There's an injustice here. Someone's stolen a trinket of mine. I need to go find it. We need to make sure some justice is served here. Right? Right? Same behavior. It's just Calvin and Hobbes presents it perhaps in a little more humorous way. So we know there's a standard out there, some kind of standard of right and wrong, not because we violate it, but because we have a negative reaction when it affects us negatively. Am I right? So I want to reinforce that because someone may say, well, when I was a kid, I lied and I didn't know it was wrong. Right? The answer would be, but you knew it was wrong when someone lied to you, isn't it? Isn't that true? And of course, the answer is always yes. You don't have to tell someone it's wrong to be lied to. Right? That doesn't require any kind of instruction. Right? We know it intuitively. All right. So there's a basic standard of moral behavior to which all people in every culture subscribe. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, yeah. I'll connect with you here after, okay? All right, that sounds good. So either this standard of moral behavior is universal or relative. Either the standard of moral behavior is universal or relative. All right? And if it's relative, it doesn't apply to all people at all times. If it's universal, it does. Do you understand the difference in terms? I'm sorry?
I said, are those our only two options?
I can't think of a third unless you can think of one. You can jump back and forth between the two. So here's another Calvin and Hobbes. This was the one I think I might replace with the new one here. Calvin and Hobbes are taking a walk in wintertime, and it's just after New Year's, and Hobbes asks, how are you doing on your New Year's resolutions? And Calvin says, I didn't make any. See, in order to improve oneself, one must have some idea what good is, and that implies certain values, okay? But as we all know, values are relative. Every system of belief is equally valued, and we need to tolerate diversity. Virtue isn't better than vice. It's just different. And then Hobbes says, I don't know if I can tolerate that much tolerance. And then Calvin says, I refuse to be victimized by your notions of virtuous behavior, right? So Calvin, he is trying to be a relativist, right? He doesn't want anyone to press upon him any kind of ideas of morality, of right and wrong. But as soon as Hobbes says, boy, I don't know if I can handle that in you, what does Calvin say? I object to your application to me, right? I object to your relative standard on me. I object to that. Well, Calvin, if you're a relativist, then you need to acknowledge everyone else around you would be a relativist as well. And so if I'm a relativist, and it is a benefit to me to steal something that belongs to you, why should that bother me? In fact, if I'm a relativist and you steal something from me because that benefits you, why should I object to that? But I do, and you do too, right? We'd all object to that. So this standard can't be relative. This must be universal. It applies to everybody. And so we go back to when Susie stole Hobbes from Calvin. By Calvin's anger, he reveals that this standard is something universal. Everyone, it's wrong. It's always wrong to steal someone's stuffed animal, according to Calvin, at least in this situation. Now, if it came time for Calvin to steal Mr. Bun, who is Susie's little stuffed toy, probably he would think differently. But again, since he's been the victim of its violation, he reveals that there's something universal about this law. Now, if we're going to investigate this idea of a relative moral standard, okay, if this standard is relative, then there's a number of things that it could be. And the reason why we're going to bring this up, because someone could say to you, not so fast. I have an explanation, a plausible explanation why we see things as right and wrong that falls short of the need of some kind of universal moral lawgiver. Okay? What would some of those things be? What do you think one of the things would be?
That morals are crucial for the longevity of the species and community is crucial for the well-being of the individual.
Okay, so there's some kind of evolutionary benefit in morality, okay? What's another? What if I say morality is just something that I find personally objective, or certainly personally objectionable, right? What if I say your behavior is just something that someone finds personally objectionable? What will we say in response to that?
That it's subjective.
It's subjective, right? What's to say your revulsion against my moral behavior is any more valid than your revulsion for moral behavior? Because even a conniving brat like Calvin knows that stealing is wrong, right? Well, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question on this. I'm sure there are people that it says in Scripture that it's written on our hearts, right? So we already know that.
Yeah.
How do we know what's right and wrong? God has put it in our hearts.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't believe in God will argue. I don't know what their argument is. My question is,
Yeah.
people who are like psychopaths,
Yeah,
they know what people say is right or wrong.
yeah,
But
yeah.
can they be held accountable? Can God hold them accountable if their brains don't, like, God didn't write on their hearts what's right or wrong?
Yeah. Let's see, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
So with psychopathy, which is like the ASPD spectrum, it's not truly emotionally void. They do have a capacity for intelligence, not like emotional intelligence, but it's just like very limited, and they can objectively understand like what is right and wrong because they do get like an anger response when things are done against them.
Right.
And they actually can cry. It's just how much of emotion are they truly feeling and how often. So I would say yes, because they are very intelligent in general, and they do have like reason, and there actually are quite a few people with that condition who do enjoy like humanitarian kind of work, or work in all areas of society. So I would say they're definitely accountable, but they do have things working against them, and they probably should be
But you
actively
can't
aware.
use
So I guess my question would be, would someone who suffers from a psychological disorder and doesn't seem to have this sense of right and wrong, do they ever object to a situation where they're the victim of right and wrong?
But they would have the ability to discern right from wrong. The only thing in this condition is how, like, limited their emotional output is.
Okay. I'm not a medical professional, so I like going outside my lane, so to speak. Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to what would you tell someone who runs that moral chain? I'm asking you, since this is an apologetic class, is it a fruitless method in order to use inverse reasoning? For instance, if someone's like, morality is based on popular belief or my truth and your truth,
Yeah.
my personal instinct is to run that down with them. Say, yeah,
Yeah.
totally, you're totally right. Of course, that's true. And so in that case, like these regimes that have happened in the past, Hitler, he was right as long as the world agreed with him, and then run them down to getting to fight against their own argument, right?
Yeah.
That's my instinct, but is that even a fruitful way to?
Well, yeah. That basically you're showing the absurdity of their argument by bringing it to its logical conclusion. Yeah. And so, for instance, what's moral and what's not is just whether or not I have a negative reaction to it. That really doesn't fly, because what's to say your negative reaction is any more valuable or right than my negative reaction? And when you exhibit a negative reaction to my moral misbehavior, on what standard are you judging me by, right? Besides the weapon you're holding. And then you use the topic of Nazi Germany, right? Do we not all agree that our present society is morally superior than the Nazi regime in the 1920s and 30s? I would think so. Right? If not, then we've got a real problem. And we make these judgments all the time. Right? Even secularists will say society is growing better and better and better. Well, on what basis do you say that? Right? How do we judge between this society? Without a moral standard, there's no better society, there's only different societies, right? Now just because someone would say, hey, look, I think that's wrong, it doesn't necessarily mean that their reasoning is entirely justified, right? So take, for example, is morality that which is legislated? Is that how we determine what morality is? Is that alone the requirement? Whatever the nation legislates, that's what's moral and immoral. No. And we would never say in 1863 that slavery was moral, where in 1867 now it's immoral because we changed the law, right? The argument always was slavery is immoral. It doesn't matter when and where. We were righting a wrong in the Emancipation Proclamation, right? That's what the argument is. Now, we can debate about slavery and the nature of slavery, how it's been pursued in different time periods in different cultures. But the argument, at least in the 1800s, was that. Am I right? So legislation doesn't account for it. And then the last one on evolution. Really, the evolutionary process is a process where the strongest or the fittest survive. And so long as you can pass on your genetic coding, then might makes right, because that's success in the biological world. Is that a good standard for moral behavior? That is not. If you are the strongest, it's fine. But not everyone is the strongest, and not everyone who is the strongest remains the strongest, because time always ticks away. There'll be somebody else. So none of those explanations can adequately account for our understanding this notion of good and evil. How do we get it? It's out there somewhere. How did this come about? So there is a basic standard of moral behavior to which all people in every culture subscribe. Either the standard of moral behavior is universal or relative. If this standard is relative, then it is a personal conviction, culturally determined, legislated, or the product of evolution. If the standard is relative, then we have no basis to judge the moral stature of other people's cultures or time periods. But we make these judgments all the time. We make them all the time. And so if at all we debate the moral strength or weakness of anything else, we're debating whether or not there's a universal moral standard. Therefore, if at any point we judge the moral stature of other people, cultures, or time periods, then we acknowledge that there is a universal moral law by which all people ought to conform. If there is a universal moral law, then there must be a universal moral lawgiver. And we call this universal moral lawgiver God. Once again, the moral law is ultimately determined or understood not by what humans believe to be right or wrong, but what the moral lawgiver says is right and wrong. So to determine this, we must answer the question, who is this moral lawgiver, and what does he have to say about morality? Is that a good question? Okay. Well, we are at our finish time. I think it's time for lunch. Do you have any questions? Maybe we're all tired, and it's time to take a break from apologetics for the day. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess now we can break. Good work today. We covered a lot of territory. All right. We'll recap again tomorrow briefly so that it's fresh in our minds as we move forward. All right. Yes, you're welcome.